The revival started on a Wednesday night, October 18th, 2023. 7 days of services, 7 nights of powerful preaching and breakthrough worship. Our church, Covenant Fellowship, did this every October for the past 12 years. Guest evangelist, extended altar calls, testimonies, healing services. The whole community came. People drove from 3 counties away. The sanctuary would be packed every single night. 400 people, sometimes 500 on the weekend. People got saved. Marriages healed. Addictions broken. Prodigal children returned home. Diseases healed. Lives radically changed. It was always powerful. Pastor Williams said, "Revival was the highlight of our church year. The week everything shifted. The week heaven touched earth. But this year, the revival would change my life in a way I never saw coming. This year, revival wasn't just about other people's breakthroughs. This year, it was about mine. And it started with a woman in a burgundy dress who sat in the front row and stared at my husband like she owned him. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Let me tell you who I was before that Wednesday night, before everything changed, before my world turned upside down. My name is Gabrielle Foster. Everyone calls me Gabby. I'm 34 years old, African American, born and raised in North Carolina, married to Brandon Lee Foster for 9 years. We met when I was 23, he was 25, met at a church singles event. He was playing guitar, I was serving refreshments. Our eyes met across the fellowship hall and something just clicked. We started dating 3 weeks later, engaged 6 months after that, married a year later at Covenant Fellowship in a beautiful ceremony with 180 guests. Brandon is everything I ever wanted in a husband. Kind, gentle, hardworking, devoted to God, amazing father, incredible worship leader. He's been leading worship at Covenant Fellowship for 6 years. Before that, he was just a member of the congregation. But when our previous worship leader moved out of state, Pastor Williams asked Brandon to step up. And he did. And he's been anointed in that role ever since. When Brandon leads worship, you can feel the presence of God. People say the atmosphere shifts when he plays, when he sings, when he closes his eyes and gets lost in worship. It's powerful. It's real. It's genuine. We have 2 children. Isaiah Brandon Foster, 7 years old, 2nd grade, smart as a whip, loves soccer and video games. And Naomi Grace Foster, 5 years old, kindergarten, sweet as sugar, loves princess dresses and dance class. They're our world, our everything. We're that family, the worship leader's family, the family everyone looks at on Sunday mornings and thinks they have it all together. Beautiful kids, strong marriage, faithful service, smiling faces, perfect family. But here's the thing about looking perfect. It's usually a mask, a facade, a carefully curated image that hides the cracks underneath. And we had cracks, not big ones, not obvious ones, but cracks nonetheless. Brandon had been distant for the past few months, withdrawn, spending more time alone, more time in prayer, more time with his guitar behind closed doors. I'd ask him what was wrong. He'd say nothing, just processing some things, just dealing with some stuff from his past, just working through some guilt he'd been carrying. I didn't push, didn't pry, figured he'd talk when he was ready, figured it was between him and God, figured whatever it wasn't a threat to our marriage. I was wrong. Wednesday night, October 18th, 2023. The first night of revival. I spent the afternoon getting the kids ready, making sure they had church clothes, snacks, activity books to keep them occupied during the longer service. Revival services run longer than normal services. Sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 if God is really moving, so I packed supplies, prepared, got everyone fed and dressed and in the car by 6:15 p.m. Service started at 7 p.m., but we always arrived early. Brandon needed to be there by 6:30 for sound check and team prayer. We pulled into the church parking lot at 6:25 p.m. The lot was already half full. People were excited. Revival had been promoted for weeks. Flyers, social media, word of mouth. Dr. Patricia Morgan was our guest evangelist. She's a legend. Been in ministry for 40 years, plants churches, trains pastors, preaches at conferences all over the world. When she comes to a church, things happen. Miracles, breakthroughs, salvations, deliverances. People don't miss Dr. Morgan when she's in town. Brandon parked, kissed me quickly, said I'll see you inside, grabbed his guitar case and headed toward the side entrance where the worship team enters. I took Isaiah and Naomi through the main entrance. The sanctuary was already buzzing with energy, people greeting each other, hugging, laughing, finding seats. The praise team was setting up on stage, microphones being tested, instruments being tuned, lights being adjusted. I found our usual spot, 5th row, right side, center aisle. We'd sat there every Sunday for 6 years. It was our spot. Everyone knew it. Nobody ever took it. Isaiah and Naomi settled in with their activity books. I pulled out my journal. I always journal during services. Write down what God is saying, what the pastor is preaching, what I'm feeling. It helps me process, helps me remember. At 6:45 p.m., the worship team took the stage. 7 people. Brandon on lead guitar and vocals, Sandra on keyboard, Deacon James on bass, Marcus on drums, and 3 background vocalists. They started with a sound check, testing levels, making sure everything was right. Brandon looked focused, serious, eyes closed even during the sound check, which was unusual. Normally he's joking with the team, smiling, relaxed, but tonight he looked tense, burdened, like he was carrying something heavy. At 7 p.m., Pastor Williams opened the service with prayer. Welcome, everyone. Introduced Dr. Morgan. Talked about what God was going to do this week. Then he handed it over to Brandon for worship. Brandon stepped to the microphone, guitar strapped across his chest, opened his mouth and started singing. His voice filled the sanctuary, strong, anointed, clear. The congregation stood, hands raised, voices joining his. The presence of God descended immediately. You could feel it, thick, heavy, sweet, like honey in the air. I closed my eyes, started worshiping, started singing, started letting God minister to my heart. Isaiah and Naomi were coloring beside me. Content, quiet, letting Mommy have her moment with God. That's when I felt it, a shift, a disturbance, something that made my eyes open, made me look around, made my spirit alert. And that's when I saw her. She walked in late, maybe 10 minutes into worship. The sanctuary was dark except for the stage lights. She walked down the center aisle, slowly, deliberately, purposefully, like she was making an entrance, like she wanted to be seen. She was African American, late 30s, I guessed. Beautiful, stunning actually, tall, maybe 5'9", curvy, wearing a burgundy dress that fit her like it was custom made. Not the kind of dress you wear to a Wednesday night revival service, the kind of dress you wear to a gala, or a date, or when you're trying to be noticed. Her hair was styled in long goddess locks that cascaded down her back. Her makeup was flawless, her heels were high, and she walked with confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're beautiful and knowing everyone is watching you. She walked all the way to the front, past rows and rows of people, past families and couples and groups of friends, walked right down to the front row, dead center, the seat directly in front of the stage, directly in front of where Brandon was standing. And she sat down, didn't stand for worship, didn't raise her hands, didn't sing, just sat and stared at Brandon, her eyes locked on him, intense, focused, unwavering, like she was studying him, like she was memorizing him, like she was trying to communicate something through her gaze. I felt my stomach tighten, felt my throat constrict, felt jealousy rise up in me like bile. Who was this woman? Why was she staring at my husband like that? Why did she sit right in front of him? And why did she look so comfortable doing it? I looked at Brandon to see if he noticed her. His eyes were closed, but something changed. His worship became more intense, more desperate. His voice got louder, his guitar playing got more aggressive, like he was trying to drown something out, like he was trying to escape into the music, like he was hiding. And that's when I knew. He knew she was there. He could feel her presence, and he was avoiding her, avoiding looking at her, avoiding acknowledging her, which meant he knew her, which meant there was history, which meant I had something to worry about. The worship set lasted 45 minutes. Normally, I'm lost in worship. Normally, I don't even notice the time. But that night, I watched the woman in Burgundy, watched Brandon, watched the dynamic between them. She never took her eyes off him. Not once. And he never opened his eyes. Not once. Not even during the transitions between songs when he normally looks at the worship team or scans the congregation or smiles at the people. He kept his eyes squeezed shut, like if he didn't see her, she wasn't there. When worship ended, Brandon handed the service over to Dr. Morgan, said, "God bless you, church. Let's prepare our hearts for the word." Then he unplugged his guitar, stepped off the stage, and instead of sitting in the front row with the rest of the worship team like he always did, he walked past the front row, past the woman in Burgundy, past everyone, and sat in the very back row, near the exit, as far away from her as he could get. I turned around to look at him. Our eyes met. He looked terrified, caught, guilty. Then he looked away. Dr. Morgan stepped to the pulpit, opened her Bible, started preaching. The message was on Psalm 139. "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." She preached about how God knows everything, sees everything. Nothing is hidden from him. No secret stays buried forever. No lie remains unexposed. God brings things to light, not to shame us, not to destroy us, but to heal us, to free us, to deliver us. Exposure is the first step to freedom. Truth is the pathway to healing. What's done in darkness must come to light, and when it does, we have a choice. We can run, or we can repent. We can hide, or we can heal. It was a powerful message. People were weeping, going to the altar, confessing things, releasing things, but all I could think about was the woman in Burgundy, and my husband sitting in the back row, and the fact that something was very, very wrong. After service ended, I tried to find Brandon. He'd already left, slipped out during altar call. I texted him, "Where are you?" He responded 10 minutes later. "Had to leave. Wasn't feeling well. See you at home." I looked around for the woman in Burgundy. She was gone too. Vanished just as mysteriously as she'd appeared. I gathered Isaiah and Naomi, put them in the car, drove home, put them to bed, waited for Brandon. He came home at 11 p.m., 3 hours after service ended. "Where have you been?" I asked. "Driving, thinking, praying. Why? What's going on?" "Nothing. Just have a lot on my mind." He kissed me on the forehead, went upstairs, took a long shower, got in bed, turned away from me. Wouldn't talk, wouldn't explain, just shut down completely. I laid there in the dark, mind racing. Who was that woman? Why was she there? Why did she affect Brandon like that? Why did he run from her? What was he hiding? I didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the ceiling, praying, asking God to reveal the truth, asking him to protect my marriage, asking him to help me not lose my mind with worry and suspicion. Thursday night, revival night 2. I was determined to get answers. I dropped the kids off at my mother's house, told her I needed to attend revival without distractions, that I needed to focus. She didn't ask questions, just hugged me, said, "I'll be praying for you, baby." She knew something was wrong. Mothers always know. I arrived at church at 6:45 p.m., early. I didn't go to our usual spot. I sat in the back, near where Brandon had sat the night before. I wanted to watch, wanted to observe, wanted to see everything. Brandon arrived at 6:30 with the worship team. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped, moving like he was carrying 1,000 pounds. The team went through sound check. Brandon barely participated, just played his guitar, didn't joke, didn't smile, didn't engage. At 7 p.m., service started. Pastor Williams prayed, introduced Dr. Morgan again, handed it to Brandon for worship. Brandon stepped to the mic, closed his eyes, started singing, and the woman in Burgundy walked in. Same time, same entrance, same burgundy dress, same confident walk down the center aisle, same seat in the front row, same intense stare. It was like déjà vu, like watching the same scene play out again. Brandon's entire body tensed when she sat down. I could see it from where I was sitting. His shoulders went rigid, his jaw clenched, his eyes squeezed even tighter. And his worship became desperate, almost frantic, like he was begging God to help him, to save him, to deliver him from whatever this was. The woman in Burgundy sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. Eyes never leaving Brandon, not blinking, not moving, just watching, studying, communicating something I couldn't understand. After worship, Brandon did the same thing, handed off to Dr. Morgan, walked past the front row without looking at her, sat in the back, far away, isolated, alone. Dr. Morgan's message that night was on 2 Samuel 12, the story of Nathan confronting David about his sin with Bathsheba. You are the man. God sent me to expose what you've been hiding, to bring to light what you've done in secret, not to condemn you, but to correct you, to restore you, to save you from the destruction your sin will bring if you don't repent. She talked about how God loves us too much to let us stay in sin, how he sends prophets, sends messengers, sends people to confront us, to wake us up, to shake us up, to break through our denial and force us to face the truth. And when those messengers come, we have a choice. We can receive the word, or we can reject it. We can repent, or we can run. But either way, the truth has been spoken, and we're accountable for what we do with it. Another powerful message. More people at the altar. More tears, more breakthroughs. But Brandon didn't go to the altar, didn't respond, just sat in the back with his arms crossed and his face like stone, refusing to acknowledge whatever God was trying to say to him. After service, I waited outside, watched people leave, watched for the woman in Burgundy. She came out about 15 minutes after everyone else, alone, walking to her car, a silver sedan. I memorized the license plate, watched her drive away. Then, I went looking for Brandon. He was in the church parking lot, sitting in our car, engine running, staring at nothing. I knocked on the window. He unlocked the door. I got in. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I spoke. "Who is she?" I asked. My voice was calm, controlled, but my heart was racing. "Who is who?" Brandon said, not looking at me. "The woman in the burgundy dress, the one sitting in the front row, the one you won't look at, the one who's making you act like this. Who is she?" "Nobody. Just someone from my past. Nobody important. If she's nobody important, why are you acting like this? Why are you running from her? Why won't you look at her? Why did you leave the sanctuary both nights? What are you hiding, Brandon?" He turned to me, tears in his eyes. "Gabby, please. Don't do this. Don't ask me about her. It's complicated. It's painful. It's something I buried a long time ago, and I don't want to dig it up. Please, just trust me. Trust that I love you. Trust that I'm committed to our marriage. Trust that whatever this is, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," I said. "Tell me who she is. Tell me why she's here. Tell me why you're falling apart. Because I can't trust what I don't understand. And right now, all I see is a woman staring at my husband like she knows him intimately, and my husband acting guilty and scared and hiding. So tell me the truth, or I'm going to go ask her myself." "Don't," Brandon said quickly. "Please don't talk to her. Please just leave it alone. I'll handle it. I'll deal with it. Just give me time." "You've had 2 nights," I said. "How much more time do you need?" He didn't answer. Just started the car. Drove us home. We rode in silence. When we got home, he went straight to the guest room. Locked the door. Wouldn't come out. I stood outside that door for 30 minutes, knocking, begging, pleading. "Talk to me, Brandon. Please, let me in. Let me help." He never opened the door. I went to our bedroom, locked myself in, and cried. Cried until I had no more tears. Cried until my body hurt. Cried until I fell asleep fully dressed on top of the covers. Friday morning, I woke up exhausted, emotionally drained, physically depleted. I had to work, had to teach second graders, had to pretend everything was fine, had to smile and be Mrs. Foster, the sweet teacher who loves kids and makes learning fun. I got through the day on autopilot. Taught lessons I've taught 100 times, graded papers, supervised recess, ate lunch in my classroom alone, avoided the teacher's lounge where people would ask how I'm doing and I'd have to lie and say I'm great. At 3:30 p.m. school ended. I drove to my mother's house, picked up Isaiah and Naomi. They'd spent the night with her. She took one look at me and said, "Baby, what's wrong?" I broke down, told her everything. The woman in Burgundy, Brandon's behavior, the secrets, the fear, the distance. She held me while I cried. Then she said something I'll never forget. "God is trying to tell you something. This woman didn't show up at revival by accident. She's there for a reason. And whatever that reason is, God is allowing it to happen for your good. For Brandon's good. For healing. For restoration. For breakthrough. I know it's painful. I know it's scary. But trust God. Trust that He's in control. Trust that whatever is hidden is about to come to light. And when it does, trust that God will give you the grace to handle it." I nodded, wiped my tears, took my kids home, fed them dinner, got them ready for the Friday night revival service. Brandon came home at 6 p.m., showered, changed, got ready in silence. We drove to church separately, him in his car, me and the kids in mine. We were falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. Friday night, revival night 3, I was done being passive, done watching from a distance, done waiting for Brandon to tell me the truth. If he wouldn't tell me, I'd find out myself. I dropped Isaiah and Naomi in the children's ministry room. They had special activities during revival, crafts, games, snacks. They loved it. That meant I could focus without worrying about them getting bored or being too loud or needing my attention. I walked into the sanctuary. Didn't sit in our usual spot. Didn't sit in the back. I sat on the side. 3rd row, perpendicular to the stage. Perfect view of the front row. Perfect view of Brandon on stage. I could watch everything, see everything, miss nothing. Brandon was already on stage, setting up, tuning his guitar, looking nervous, looking like he was preparing for battle instead of preparing for worship. The rest of the worship team was there: Sandra, Deacon James, Marcus, the background vocalists. They were laughing, talking, relaxed. But Brandon was isolated, alone even in a crowd, locked in his own world of fear and dread. At 7 p.m., service started. Pastor Williams prayed, welcomed everyone, said tonight is night 3, the midpoint of revival, the turning point. This is where things shift, where breakthrough happens, where strongholds break, where bondage ends. Get ready. God is about to do something powerful tonight. He introduced Dr. Morgan. She stood, waved to the congregation, smiled, then sat back down. It was time for worship. Time for Brandon to lead us into the presence of God. Brandon stepped to the microphone, opened his mouth to start singing, and the doors opened. She walked in. The woman in Burgundy. Same time, same dress, same confident walk. But tonight was different. Tonight she wasn't just walking to the front row. Tonight she was looking around, scanning the congregation, looking for someone. And then her eyes found me, locked on me. And she smiled. A sad smile, a knowing smile. A smile that said, I see you. I know who you are. And I'm here for you too. My blood ran cold. She walked to the front row, sat down, And this time, she didn't just stare at Brandon. She glanced back at me, over and over, making sure I was watching, making sure I saw her, making sure I knew she had something to say. Brandon saw the exchange, saw her looking at me, saw me looking at her, and he panicked, completely panicked. He started the first worship song, but his voice cracked. His fingers fumbled on the guitar. He had to restart. Apologize. Say sorry. Let's try that again. It was painful to watch, painful to hear. The anointed worship leader was falling apart on stage. The worship set was a disaster. Brandon was off-key, off-tempo, distracted. The team tried to cover for him, but it was obvious something was wrong. People in the congregation were whispering, wondering, concerned. After 20 minutes, Brandon cut worship short, said, "Let's prepare our hearts for the word," handed it over to Dr. Morgan, and walked off stage. But this time, he didn't sit in the back. He walked straight toward me, sat down in the empty seat beside me, grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard, looked at me with desperation in his eyes. "Please don't talk to her. Please, I'm begging you. Whatever you do, don't talk to her." "Why?" I asked. "What is she going to tell me?" "The truth," he whispered. "A truth I should have told you 9 years ago when we got married. A truth I buried because I was ashamed, because I was guilty, because I thought it didn't matter anymore. But it does matter. And she's here to expose it, and I'm terrified of what you're going to think of me when you find out. Then tell me yourself," I said. "Right now. Tell me before she does. Tell me on your terms. Give me a chance to hear it from you." "I can't," Brandon said, tears streaming down his face. "I can't say it out loud. Can't admit it. Can't face it. I've been running from it for 14 years, and I don't know how to stop running." Before I could respond, Dr. Morgan started preaching. Her voice boomed through the sanctuary. Powerful, anointed, filled with authority. "Church," she said, "tonight we're talking about secrets, about the things we hide, the things we bury, the things we hope never come to light. But God said tonight is the night of exposure. Tonight is the night truth comes out. Tonight is the night healing begins. And it's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel like death. But on the other side of death is resurrection. On the other side of exposure is freedom. On the other side of truth is healing. So if you're sitting here carrying a secret, if you're hiding something, if you're running from something, God is saying, tonight is your night. Tonight you face it. Tonight you confess it. Tonight you release it. And tonight you get free. The sanctuary was silent, heavy. You could feel the Holy Spirit moving, pressing, convicting. People started crying, quietly at first. Then louder. The altar filled up. People going forward, confessing, releasing, getting free. And then Dr. Morgan did something unexpected. She stopped preaching, walked off the stage, walked down the center aisle, walked straight to the front row, walked straight to the woman in Burgundy. The entire sanctuary watched, confused, wondering what was happening. Dr. Morgan stood in front of the woman, looked down at her, and spoke. "Sister, God told me you have something to say. Something you came here to say. Something this church needs to hear. Is that true?" The woman in Burgundy looked up at Dr. Morgan, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, ma'am. It's true. I have something to say, something I should have said 14 years ago, something that's going to change everything for someone sitting in this sanctuary tonight." "Then say it," Dr. Morgan said. "God has given you a platform. Use it. Speak your truth." The woman in Burgundy stood up, turned to face the congregation. Her eyes found Brandon, then found me. Then she spoke. Her voice was shaking, but strong, broken, but bold. "My name is Tasha Reynolds. 14 years ago, I was engaged to a man I loved with all my heart. We'd been together since high school, 7 years. We were planning our wedding. I was pregnant with his baby, 6 months along. We were young, only 21. But we were in love. We were committed. We were building a future. And then 2 weeks before our wedding, he disappeared. Left a note. Said he couldn't do it. Couldn't be a husband. Couldn't be a father. Said he was sorry. Said I deserved better. And he vanished. Changed his number. Moved away. I never heard from him again. I had our baby alone. Raised him alone. And for 14 years, I believed he abandoned us. Believed he didn't love me enough. Believed he was a coward who ran when things got hard. Until 6 months ago. Until my father died. Until he confessed something on his deathbed. Until everything I believed was proven wrong. The sanctuary was dead silent. Everyone listening. Captivated. Waiting for what came next. Tasha continued. My father told me that after my fiancé refused his money, he went back to him. Threatened him. Told him that if he didn't leave me, he'd destroy him. Get him arrested on false charges. Plant drugs. Ruin his reputation. Make sure he never worked again. Make his life hell. And my father said if my fiancé truly loved me, he'd leave. He'd protect me from the fallout. He'd sacrifice himself so I could have a good life. And my fiancé believed him. Took the threat seriously. And left to protect me. Not because he didn't love me, but because he did. And I never knew. I spent 14 years hating him, teaching our son to hate him, believing a lie my father created, until my father confessed and gave me the truth. And I came here to find my son's father, to tell him what really happened, to apologize, to introduce him to the son he doesn't know exists, to give us all a chance to heal from 14 years of lies. She turned, looked directly at Brandon, and said his name. Brandon Lee Foster, you're my son's father, and you're the man I came here to find. The sanctuary erupted. Gasps, whispers, shock. People looking at Brandon, looking at me, looking at Tasha, trying to process what they just heard. Brandon's face was white, completely drained of color. I felt like I was going to pass out. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Brandon had a child, a son. He'd been engaged before me, pregnant fiancé. He'd left her. He'd never told me. He'd kept this secret for 9 years of marriage. 9 years. Dr. Morgan walked over to Brandon, put her hand on his shoulder. Brother, is what she's saying true? Brandon stood up, slowly, shakily, like his legs could barely hold him. He turned to face the congregation, tears streaming down his face, voice broken. Yes, it's true, all of it. Tasha and I were engaged. She was pregnant. I left her, not because I wanted to, but because I was threatened, because I was scared, because I was 21 and powerless and facing a man who had the resources to destroy me. So I ran. I walked away from the woman I loved and the baby I'd helped create. And I've carried that guilt every day for 14 years. I've hated myself for it, called myself a coward, believed I was the worst kind of man. And I never told Gabrielle because I was ashamed, because I thought if she knew, she wouldn't love me, wouldn't respect me, wouldn't marry me. So I buried it, pretended it never happened, started over, built a new life. But you can't build on lies. And tonight, the truth has come out. And I don't know what happens now. I don't know if my wife will ever forgive me, if my church will ever trust me again, if my son, a son I've never met, will ever want to know me. But Tasha is right. She came here to tell the truth. And the truth is, I left her. I abandoned her. And I've regretted it every single day since. He turned to me. Gabby, I'm so sorry. I should have told you. Should have trusted you. Should have been honest from the beginning. I was wrong. And I understand if you can't forgive me, if you need to leave, if this is too much. I understand. I stood up, looked at him. At this man I'd been married to for 9 years. This man I thought I knew. This man who just revealed he'd kept a massive secret our entire relationship. I felt so many things. Anger, betrayal, hurt, confusion, but also something else. something unexpected. I felt compassion. I felt understanding. Because looking at Brandon's face, I didn't see a liar. I didn't see a cheater. I didn't see a man who didn't love me. I saw a man who'd made a terrible choice when he was young and scared. A man who'd been manipulated and threatened. A man who'd been carrying unbearable guilt for 14 years. A man who'd buried his past because he didn't know how to face it. I looked at Tasha. She was crying, watching us, waiting to see what I would do, waiting to see if I'd destroy Brandon or if I'd choose grace. I walked past Brandon, walked down the aisle, walked to Tasha, stood in front of her, and I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I hugged her, wrapped my arms around this woman who'd been engaged to my husband, this woman who'd had his baby, this woman who'd spent 14 years hating him. And I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what happened to you. I'm so sorry you went through that alone. I'm so sorry you believed lies for 14 years, and I'm so sorry Brandon wasn't there for you and your son. You deserved better. You both did." Tasha sobbed in my arms, held me tight, said thank you for not hating me. Thank you for not blaming me. Thank you for understanding. We stood there in the front of the sanctuary, two women connected by one man's past, two women who should have been enemies, but instead chose grace, chose compassion, chose healing over hatred. Dr. Morgan came to us, put her hands on both of us, started praying. The entire congregation surrounded us, praying, crying, worshiping. It was the most powerful moment I'd ever experienced, the most painful, but also the most beautiful. Because in that moment, God was doing what only God can do. He was bringing healing through exposure, redemption through truth, restoration through confession. After service ended, Pastor Williams called Brandon, me, Tasha, and himself into his office. We sat in a circle. Heavy silence. Then Pastor Williams spoke. "This is a lot. For all of you. Brandon, you just had your deepest secret exposed in front of 400 people. Gabrielle, you just found out your husband has a 13-year-old son you didn't know existed. Tasha, you just confronted the man who you believed abandoned you. This is going to take time to process, time to heal, time to figure out next steps. But I believe God orchestrated this. God brought this to light during revival for a reason. Because He's in the business of restoration, of redemption, of healing what's broken. And if we let Him, He'll work this out for good." "What happens now?" I asked. "Where do we go from here?" "Counseling," Pastor Williams said. "All of you. Individual and marriage counseling for Brandon and Gabriel. Co-parenting counseling for Brandon and Tasha. Family counseling when Brandon meets his son. This is going to be a journey. A complicated, messy, painful journey. But I believe you can navigate it with God's help." "When do I meet him?" Brandon asked. "My son. When do I meet Joshua?" Tasha pulled out her phone, showed Brandon a picture. "This is Joshua. He's 13. He looks just like you. Same eyes, same smile, same build. He's been asking about you his whole life, asking why you didn't want him, asking what he did wrong. And I've had to lie to him because I didn't know the truth. But now I do. And now you know. And now we can tell him together. Tell him his father didn't abandon him. Tell him you loved him. Tell him you were protecting him. Tell him you made a mistake. But most importantly, tell him you want to be in his life now, if that's true. If you really do want to be his father." "I do," Brandon said, voice shaking. "I want to meet him, want to know him, want to be his dad. I've missed 13 years. I can't get those back. But I can be there for him now. If he'll let me. If he wants me." "He wants you," Tasha said. "He's been waiting his whole life for you." Saturday morning, 24 hours after the revelation, Brandon and I sat down to talk. Really talk. No interruptions, no kids, no church, just us, in our living room. With coffee and tissues and a lot of unspoken pain. I asked him to tell me everything. From the beginning, the whole story, every detail. He did, Told me about meeting Tasha in high school, falling in love, 7 years together, getting engaged, finding out about the pregnancy, planning the wedding, being happy, being excited, being young and naive and believing everything would work out. Then he told me about Tasha's father, the wealthy businessman who hated Brandon, who thought he wasn't good enough, who offered him money to leave. $50,000. Brandon refused, said no amount of money would make him abandon Tasha. Then the father came back, with threats instead of money, threatened to have him arrested, plant drugs in his car, ruin his reputation, get him fired, make him unemployable. Brandon was 21, broke, powerless, and terrified. So he left, wrote the note, disappeared, moved 3 states away, started over, got therapy, got into church, found God, rebuilt his life, met me 5 years later, fell in love, got married, built a family, but never told me about Tasha, about Joshua, about the guilt and shame he carried every single day. I listened, processed, asked questions. Why didn't you tell me before we got married? Why did you keep this secret? He said because he was ashamed, because he thought if I knew, I'd think he was a coward, think he wasn't man enough, think he'd do the same thing to me if things got hard. So he buried it, convinced himself it was in the past, that it didn't matter anymore, that he could just be Brandon, the worship leader, Brandon, the good husband, Brandon, the faithful church member, without ever being Brandon, the man who left his pregnant fiancée. I asked how he felt now that the truth was out. He said terrified, relieved, devastated, free, all at the same time, terrified of losing me, relieved he didn't have to carry the secret anymore, devastated that he hurt me, free because the truth was finally out and he could stop running. I asked if he still loved Tasha. He said no, said what they had was 14 years ago. They were different people, young, immature. That relationship was long dead, but he did carry guilt, did wonder about her, did think about the baby, did pray for them even though he didn't know where they were or what happened to them. Now he knew. And now he had a chance to make it right, to be the father he should have been 13 years ago. I told him I was hurt, angry, felt betrayed, felt lied to, felt like I didn't know him, felt like our entire marriage was built on a foundation with a giant crack I never knew existed. But I also told him I understood fear, understood shame, understood why he buried it. And I told him I needed time to process, time to pray, time to figure out if I could move forward, if I could forgive, if I could trust him again. He said he understood, said he'd give me all the time I needed, said he'd do whatever it took to earn back my trust. We agreed to stay together, to work on our marriage, to go to counseling, to fight for our family. But we also agreed he needed to meet Joshua, needed to be a father to him, needed to figure out co-parenting with Tasha, and I needed to figure out how to be a wife to a man with a child from a previous relationship, how to be a bonus mom to a 13-year-old who might resent me, how to navigate the most complicated family dynamic I'd ever been part of. Saturday afternoon, Tasha brought Joshua to our house. I'd taken Isaiah and Naomi to my mother's house. This meeting needed to be private. Just Brandon, Tasha, Joshua, and me. I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to be. Wanted to support Brandon, wanted to meet Joshua, wanted to show Tasha I was committed to making this work. At 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. Brandon opened it and came face to face with his son for the first time. Joshua was tall, already Brandon's height, 13 but looked 15. Same eyes as Brandon, same nose, same mouth, same everything. It was like looking at a teenage version of Brandon. The resemblance was undeniable. Joshua stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face hard, defensive, angry. "Why are you meeting me now? Why did you leave my mom? Why didn't you want me?" Brandon's face crumpled. "Joshua, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't leave because I didn't want you. I left because I was trying to protect you, protect your mom, from a man who was threatening to destroy me. I was 21, scared, stupid, and I made the worst decision of my life. But I thought I was saving you from something worse. I was wrong. I should have stayed, should have fought, should have been there. And I've regretted it every single day for 13 years. Joshua's eyes filled with tears. You don't get to just show up now and say sorry. You don't get to just walk back into my life like nothing happened. I spent 13 years thinking you didn't want me, thinking I wasn't good enough, thinking I did something wrong. Do you know what that does to a kid? Do you know how that feels? I do, Brandon said, because I felt the same way about my father. He left when I was 5, never came back, never called, never sent a birthday card. Nothing. And I spent my whole childhood wondering why. What did I do? Why wasn't I enough? And I swore I'd never do that to my own kid. And then I did. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Joshua broke, started sobbing. Brandon stepped forward, wrapped his arms around his son for the first time in 13 years. They stood in the doorway holding each other, crying, releasing years of pain, years of absence, years of wondering. Tasha and I watched, both crying, both knowing this was the beginning. Not the end, the beginning of healing, the beginning of restoration, the beginning of a relationship that should have existed all along. They came inside, sat in the living room, talked for hours. Brandon told Joshua everything about loving Tasha, about the pregnancy, about being excited to be a dad, about the threats, about leaving, about carrying guilt, about finding God, about getting married to me, about Isaiah and Naomi, about leading worship, about trying to build a good life, but always wondering, always carrying regret, always praying for a son he didn't know. Joshua told Brandon about his life, about growing up without a dad, about other kids asking where his father was, about feeling different, about being angry, about resenting Tasha sometimes even though he loved her, about wishing things were different, about dreaming about meeting his father someday, about not knowing it would happen like this. I sat quietly, observing. This was their moment. But I was also processing what it meant that Brandon had a son, that our family was about to expand, that Isaiah and Naomi were about to have a brother, that I was about to be a bonus mom, that our lives would never be the same. Before Joshua left, he asked Brandon a question. "Can I call you Dad? Or is that weird?" Brandon cried, nodded, said, "You can call me whatever you want, but I'd be honored if you called me Dad. I've been your father for 13 years even though I wasn't there, and I want to be your dad from now on. If you'll let me." Joshua nodded, said, "Okay, Dad, I'll try. I'm still angry, still hurt, still figuring this out, but I'll try." They hugged again, made plans to meet the next weekend, to hang out, to get to know each other, to start building what should have been there all along. The rest of Revival, Saturday and Sunday, were powerful. Brandon shared his testimony publicly, told the whole story about Tasha, about Joshua, about the threats, about leaving, about carrying guilt, about God exposing the truth, about restoration beginning. The church surrounded us, prayed for us, supported us. It was overwhelming, but also beautiful, because we weren't going through this alone. Dr. Morgan preached Sunday night, the final revival service, on restoration, on how God redeems lost years, on how God brings back what the enemy stole, on how God makes beauty from ashes. She called all of us to the altar. Brandon, me, Tasha, Joshua, prayed over us, prophesied over us, said this family is going to be a testimony, a living example of God's redemptive power, a proof that no situation is too broken for God to heal. And I believed her. Over the next 6 months, our lives transformed completely. Brandon started spending time with Joshua every weekend. They played basketball, went to movies, worked on cars together. Brandon taught him guitar. Joshua was cautious at first, guarded, testing to see if Brandon would stay or leave again. But Brandon showed up, consistently, faithfully, and slowly, walls came down. Trust was built. A relationship formed. Joshua met Isaiah and Naomi. They were confused at first. Who is this? Why does he look like Dad? We explained as best we could in age-appropriate ways. You have a brother. Dad had him before he met Mommy. He's part of our family now. They accepted it quickly. Kids are resilient like that. Within weeks, they were playing together, arguing like siblings, bonding like family. Tasha and I developed a friendship, not a close friendship, not a best friend friendship, but a respectful, mature, co-parenting friendship. We communicated about Joshua, coordinated schedules, celebrated his achievements together, put his needs first. It was awkward sometimes, complicated always. But we made it work, because we both loved Joshua, and we both wanted what was best for him. Brandon and I went to counseling, worked through the lies, the secrets, the hidden past, the betrayal of trust. I was hurt deeply, felt like I didn't know the man I married, felt like our foundation was shaky. But I also chose to fight for our marriage, chose to forgive, chose to believe that people can change, that mistakes don't define us, that grace is real. Our counselor helped us rebuild, helped us create new trust, helped us establish transparency. No more secrets, no more hiding, complete honesty moving forward. 1 year after that Friday night at Revival, October 2024, Joshua asked Brandon something life-changing. He said, "I want you to adopt me, want your last name, want to be a foster officially, not just in heart, but legally." Tasha supported it, said Joshua needed that connection, needed that security, needed to know Brandon was committed. So we started the process, hired a lawyer, filed paperwork, prepared for court. In November 2024, we went to court. Joshua Tasha Reynolds was about to become Joshua Tasha Foster. 13 years after Brandon left believing he was protecting them, Joshua was about to legally become his son. The judge asked Joshua why he wanted this. Joshua stood up, looked at Brandon, and said, "Because for 13 years I thought my dad didn't want me, thought I wasn't good enough, thought I did something wrong. But I didn't. He was protecting me. He loved me even when he couldn't be with me. And now he's here. Every weekend, every phone call, every moment he can be. He's teaching me guitar, coming to my basketball games, helping with homework, being my dad. And I want his name. I want everyone to know I'm a foster. I want to be his son officially." Brandon sobbed. I sobbed. Tasha sobbed. The judge cried. She signed the papers, made it official. And Joshua became part of our family legally. We celebrated afterward, all of us together. Brandon, me, Isaiah, Naomi, Joshua, Tasha, our crazy blended family, taking pictures, going to dinner, celebrating restoration. 2 years after that revival, October 2025, Covenant Fellowship had another revival. Same time, same evangelist. Dr. Morgan returned, 7 nights again. And this time, Brandon gave a different testimony. Stood on stage with me, Isaiah, Naomi, Joshua, and even Tasha. Told the whole story again. But this time, with an ending. With redemption. With restoration. With proof that God works all things together for good. He said 2 years ago during revival, I was leading worship when a woman in a burgundy dress sat in the front row. A woman from my past. A woman I'd left 14 years before. A woman who knew me too well, and seeing her terrified me, made me want to run, made me want to hide, because I was carrying shame, guilt, secrets. I thought she was there to destroy me, to expose me as a fraud, to reveal that the worship leader was really a coward who'd abandoned his pregnant fiancée. But she wasn't there to destroy me. She was there to restore me, to tell me the truth I didn't know, to free me from false guilt, to introduce me to my son, to give us all a second chance. And God used that revival to expose lies and reveal truth, to bring hidden things to light, to start a restoration process that's still ongoing. 2 years later, I'm a father to 3 children, husband to an incredible woman who chose grace over divorce, friend to Tasha who chose forgiveness, and Son of God who orchestrated all of this for His glory. If you're carrying shame from your past, if you're hiding something, if you're running from something, I'm here to tell you, God can redeem it. God can restore it. God can use it for good. Even when it seems impossible, I'm living proof. The church erupted. Standing ovation. Tears. Worship. People flooding the altar. Lives being changed. Because testimony is powerful. Because when people see real restoration, it gives them hope for their own. That week, I gave my own testimony for the first time. Stood on stage Tuesday night and told my side. About thinking Tasha was Brandon's mistress. About 3 days of torture watching her stare at him. About confronting her Friday night. About the revelation. About feeling humiliated. About the choice I faced. Divorce or grace. Anger or forgiveness. Walking away or fighting. I chose grace. Chose forgiveness. Chose to fight. Not because it was easy, but because God asked me to. And 2 years later, I'm not the same woman. I'm stronger, more compassionate, more understanding, more forgiving. I'm bonus mom to Joshua, friend to Tasha, wife to a man who's more whole now than before. Testimony is, I serve a God who turns mess into miracles, who turns pain into purpose, who turns what's broken into something beautiful. Women flooded the altar, women in blended families, women dealing with their husbands' pasts, women navigating complicated situations, women who needed hope. I prayed with them, encouraged them, shared that restoration is possible, that grace is real, that God specializes in impossible. Today, October 2025, 2 years after that revival, my life is completely different. I'm 36 years old, still married to Brandon, still mother to Isaiah and Naomi, now also bonus mom to Joshua, who's 15. We're a blended family, complicated, messy, beautiful. Joshua lives with Tasha but spends every weekend and half the holidays with us. We make it work. We communicate. We put the kids first. We choose grace daily. Brandon leads worship still, but differently, more vulnerable, more authentic, more real. He shares his story often, counsels men carrying shame, uses his past to bring hope. And every time he leads worship, I see freedom, real freedom, the kind you earn through exposure, confession, forgiveness, restoration. Tasha is thriving, dating a good man who treats her well, who loves Joshua, who respects Brandon, who makes her happy. I'm genuinely happy for her. She deserves love, deserves peace, deserves healing. Joshua is thriving, 15 years old, plays guitar like his dad, leads worship at youth group, has 2 homes, 3 siblings, 2 mothers, 1 father who he thought abandoned him but was actually protecting him. He's healing, becoming whole. At our church revival, the woman in the front row knew my husband too well, and I thank God she did. Because her knowing him, her loving him enough to tell the truth, started a restoration that changed all our lives forever. 2 years later, we're not perfect. We're still navigating, still learning, still growing, but we're together. We're healing. We're whole. And we're living proof that God's restoration is real, that His redemption is complete, that His grace is sufficient. And that revival isn't just about services. It's about lives transformed, families restored, truths revealed, and God's glory displayed through broken people made whole. Subscribe for true stories about Black women who navigated impossible situations with grace and faith. Hit like if you believe God can restore what seems irredeemably broken. Comment: have you ever discovered your spouse had a hidden past? How did you navigate it? Remember, God specializes in turning mess into miracles. See you in the next story.